I've spent, frankly, an unreasonable amount of time looking at trashy book covers in recent weeks, and there's one publisher who pops up again and again and again. You already know who it is. It's literally in the title of this video. Wordsworth Classics. You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you, despite the truly incomprehensible choices you make when it comes to book cover design. Hello and welcome to Spinster's Library. I'm Claudia and I've always been a second-hand book aficionado. When I lived in the UK, I had easy access to a whole high street filled with charity shops, which provided the vast majority of the books I read. Here in Germany, I make a point to visit the local-ish charity shop, and there is only one, since charity shop culture is very much not a thing here. There's nothing like the thrill of finding a book you've been meaning to read for ages and finding that it'll cost you barely anything. I love cheap secondhand classics. And if you do as well, I suspect you've come across Wordsworth editions before. Chances are you've got one or two on your own bookshelf. Go on, take a moment to pause this video and have a look at your own collection, because in a moment we'll do a little show and tell. But first, let's play a game. Let's play the Wordsworth book cover guessing game. Today's contestant is...
Bill!
Today, Bill and you can win absolutely nothing by trying to guess the titles of five Wordsworth book covers that have had the title and author removed. See how many you guess and see how many you guess. You're very much a prop. Here is our first Wordsworth book cover. Now, is this the cover for
Pride and Prejudice?
A. The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot?
Never heard of that.
Well, as it happens, I have a little blurb that I've taken from the Wordsworth website or from Goodreads, just depending on which one was shorter. As the headstrong Maggie Tulliver grows into womanhood, the deep love which she has for her brother Tom turns into conflict because she cannot reconcile his bourgeois standards with her own lively intelligence.
That's not how a lady looks at her brother.
B. Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. The story's unlikely heroine is Catherine Morland, a remarkably innocent 17-year-old woman from a country parsonage. While spending a few weeks in Bath with a family friend, Catherine meets and falls in love with Henry Tilney, who invites her to visit his family estate, Northanger Abbey.
She's not innocent, she's horny.
C. Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon.
That's it.
What is the mystery surrounding the charming heroine? Lady Audley's Secret is investigated by Robert Audley, aristocrat turned detective. So, what do we think?
I'll say C.
You say C. It is in fact A. The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot. That's the lady's brother, I assume. I haven't read the book. Let's move on to cover number 2. Is this A. Mary Poppins by P.L. Travers. From the moment Mary Poppins arrives at number 17 Cherry Tree Lane, everyday life at the Banks house is forever changed. Is it B. The Tempest by William Shakespeare? Prospero, long exiled from Italy with his daughter Miranda, seeks to use his magical powers to defeat his former enemies. Or is it C. Emma by Jane Austen? Emma organizes the lives of the inhabitants of her sleepy little village and plays matchmaker with devastating effect.
It's not Mary Poppins, because that's a film. I think it's 3.
Emma by Jane Austen.
Yeah.
You are correct. It is Emma by Jane Austen. So
That's the book.
You have 1 point so far. To be continued later. But first, let's do a show and tell. Here are my Wordsworth classics. I own 6 of them. And to be fair to them, they're not all hideous. The cover of Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy just has a vaguely derpy looking man with a neckbeard and a bucket hat on it. Also, before you have a go at me about the price sticker, I have tried to remove it and it is literally impossible. Cat's Protection, clearly on the obscure Jude the Obscure agenda. Here's another Thomas Hardy, Far from the Madding Crowd, with an equally inoffensive cover, showing some fields on a bright country morning. This one's my favourite Anne Bronte book. The cover design is just fine. A woman busy at an easel. Makes sense since the main character is a painter. Gulliver's Travels. Bit weird, but still basically fine, showing the protagonist being greeted by one of the miniature inhabitants of Lilliput. Persuasion is decidedly silly. Jane Austen's most somber, serious, almost stately heroine Anne, played here by a young lady desperate for the loo, weighing up the consequences of pissing in the bird bath. But the pinnacle of Wordsworth cover design has to be this edition of Bram Stoker's Dracula, showing a bewildered man with truly glorious eyebrows, a coat collar I can only describe as high fashion, and a haircut he clearly got in 1987. It's like the cover designer got the brief to draw a man who hadn't had a good night's sleep in 500 years and just went all in on the under-eye circles. Speaking of cover designer, let's take a closer look at who that is. On the back here, it says cover design by Robert Mathias. And this name pops up on the back of Persuasion as well, and on Jude the Obscure and Far from the Madding Crowd, and actually all of my Wordsworth Classics edition. On the back, credit the cover design to Robert Mathias. I've not been able to find out anything at all about this guy. He doesn't have a LinkedIn page. But at least during the 90s and early 2000s, which is when my Wordsworth editions are from, he appears to have been the in-house designer for Wordsworth. Mr. Mathias was clearly a very busy bee, but he didn't draw all of these covers himself. He didn't commission them for the books either. The images on these covers are all pre-existing artworks, and a lot of them from the turn of the 20th century, though this one's a bit of an exception since it was painted by contemporary artist Jonathan Barry in 1999. I'm by no means an insider to the book trade, but it doesn't take an expert to know that using pre-existing art, in particular work by semi-obscure artists of the late 19th and early 20th century, is going to be much cheaper than commissioning works specifically for the use on the book cover. This method for designing books was not invented by Wordsworth. Other publishers of classics reprints do it as well. It seems like a fairly obvious way to save money on book production. So why do Wordsworth classics stand out in their money-saving approach where others don't? What makes their classics particularly cheap? Before we answer that question, let's marvel at some more of Wordsworth's questionable cover choices. And remember to guess along and count up your points. Let's move on to cover number 3. Have a little look at this one.
This is certainly an art.
Is this Richard III by William Shakespeare? Although it has a huge cast, Richard himself, gleefully wicked, charismatically Machiavellian, always dominates the play.
It's that one, I'm not going to listen to the others.
Is it B, War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy? War and Peace is a vast epic centered on Napoleon's war with Russia. While it expresses Tolstoy's view that history is an inexorable process which man cannot influence, he peoples his great novel with a cast of over 500 characters, which frankly sounds exhausting. Is it C? Oh god, I shouldn't have chosen a book I can't pronounce. Is it the Aeneid? Aeneid? How do you say it?
I don't know what it is.
That.
Aeneid?
By Virgil. The
Aeneid?
is Virgil's masterpiece. His epic poem recounts the story of Rome's legendary origins from the ashes of Troy and proclaims her destiny of world dominion.
You done?
Yeah.
Because I stopped listening because it was one.
It is Richard III.
See?
Right, so you have 2 points so far. Well done. Cover number 4 is this. A. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. Treasure Island is the seminal Pirates and Buried treasure novel, which is so brilliantly concocted that it appeals to readers both young and old. B. Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. One night in the Reform Club, Phileas Fogg bets his companions that he can travel across the globe in just 80 days. Is it C. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell?
I mean, if it's a compass, that would make sense. I thought it was a pocket watch. I'm paying exactly as much attention as you expected me to, that's why.
Is it a pocket watch? It's not a
No,
pocket
it's
watch.
not. It's a compass.
Yeah, exactly. North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. Margaret Hale is uprooted from her comfortable home in Hampshire to move with her family to the north of England. Initially repulsed by the ugliness of her new surroundings in the industrial town of Milton, Margaret becomes aware of the poverty and suffering of the local mill workers and develops a passionate sense of social justice. So the answers were A, Treasure Island, B, Around the World in 80 Days, or C, North and South.
Forgotten all of them except David Tennant. That one. David Tennant.
Around the World in 80 Days? No.
Oh, there's Treasure Island.
It is in fact North and South. I think this has to be my favourite cover of this entire...
Well, it's a compass. It's very literal.
Compass.
Yeah.
I know. It's good. So why are Wordsworth classics so cheap? Someone asked this very question on Reddit, on a post in r/books dated 11 years ago. Wordsworth editions are usually £1.99, whereas the same text as a Penguin edition will be somewhere in the £7.99 to £9.99 range. How are they so cheap in comparison? I've heard that it's because they don't include things like notes or introductions, yet the majority of the ones I've seen have had those things included. The replies at the time were all along the same lines. Just compare a copy of a Wordsworth classic and a Penguin classic and you'll see immediately why the Wordsworth classics are cheaper. Wordsworths are made as cheaply as possible and it shows. The paper is not high quality and the binding feels like it could not withstand multiple readings. Get your hands on 20-year-old copies of a Penguin paperback and a Wordsworth paperback and it'll be easier to see the difference between them. Wordsworths are great if you want to read the book, take notes in it and then discard it. But 10 years from now, the pages will be yellow and cracking and the cover may be falling off. Well, as it happens, I've got both a Penguin classic and a Wordsworth classic. We can compare. My Wordsworth edition of Persuasion is from 1993. And at the time, this was sold for £1. I know, we'll get to that in a little while. My Penguin Popular Classics edition of Mansfield Park is 1 year younger. It was printed in 1994 and it was sold at the time for £2. According to Wikipedia, Penguin created the Popular Classics line in response to Wordsworth's £1 classics. This is even referenced on Wordsworth's own website in their company timeline section. It says, 1994, the competition heats up. In response to Wordsworth's success, other competitively priced popular classics hit the market. Oh, the shade. Fine, let's do a comparison. The Wordsworth edition feels floppier, both the cover and the actual pages. The Penguin one has a bit more body to it, the pages are a bit thicker, the cover's a bit stiffer. If you open them up, you can see that both the font size and the line spacing are smaller in the Wordsworth edition. The pages are nearly exactly the same size. But whereas Penguin prints 34 lines per page, Wordsworth manages to squeeze 42 onto that same space. The Wordsworth edition has a very perfunctory 1.5 page introduction, including a little biography of Jane Austen. Penguin too has a very perfunctory 1.5 page introduction with a few lines about the life of Jane Austen. As for wear and tear, there really isn't much between them. The Wordsworth pages are perhaps a bit more yellowed than the Penguin ones. But firstly, that's a tiny difference, and secondly, that's also to do with how these were stored and treated by the previous owners. I would say the covers are equal amounts of frayed. You know what, the Penguin one maybe even a little bit more so. Has a little bit more damage here. And also on the Penguin one, the glue, or whatever it is that holds the pages together and keeps them sticking to the spine, is decidedly dissolving here. The cover design, obviously a question of taste, but I'd rather have the trashy but fun look of the Wordsworth classic than the trashy but boring look of the Penguin classic. So is Wordsworth really as bad as Reddit suggests? texts, let's say the reputation isn't entirely unwarranted. In particular, the crammed text in the Wordsworth edition makes it harder to read than the Penguin one, a less pleasant reading experience throughout. That being said, over 30 years after this was printed, it's not dissolving into wet confetti like the good people of Reddit suggested. These Wordsworth classics, they're perfectly serviceable books. But there's no denying that their money-saving measures are noticeable. Wordsworth classics of the 90s and the 2000s didn't aspire to quality. They were cheap, and they were known to be cheap. Wordsworth, as a company, have made cheap books kind of their thing. If you click on the About page on the website, it says right at the top that Wordsworth is the birthplace of discounted books. That isn't entirely true. The idea to reprint classics and sell them for cheap goes back right to the beginning of the 20th century. Oxford's World Classics, an imprint that's still going, started selling books priced at 1 shilling in 1901. The People's Library began selling cheap books in 1907, charging 2 shillings and 6 in the UK and 55 cents per book in the US. Everyman's Library, Collins Classics, and many more started selling cheap classics at the beginning of the 20th century and continued throughout the decades. Some of these are still going today. So Wordsworth certainly didn't invent the concept, despite the claim on their website that when they launched their £1 books line in 1992, the very idea of cheap classics caused something of a sensation. From 1901, the UK's book prices were fixed by a legal arrangement that was eventually repealed in 1995. Other countries, such as Germany, still have fixed book pricing laws in place. But even under the so-called net book agreement in the UK, publishers still clearly managed to sell low-cost classics. So Wordsworth were not the first, no. But they did make it their whole thing. Their £1 classics, launched in 1992, were a huge hit, and at first they looked like this. This edition, as previously mentioned, is from 1993. I bought it some years ago in a charity shop in North Wales for 50p. After a few years, the Wordsworth Classics cover design changed to these black bordered ones. Then briefly to this style with a blue header and back cover, and then finally back to black. This style is the one that you're probably most familiar with. But before we continue with this deep dive into Wordsworth's history, let's take another little break and play the final round of the book cover guessing game. So you're still on 2 points, and this is the final one. This is a bit sexy, so let's hope that this doesn't get demonetized. Yes.
Vapors.
Is this Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier?
Yep.
Ancient, beautiful Manderley between the rose garden and the sea is the county's showpiece. Rebecca made it so. Even a year after her death, Rebecca's influence still rules there. How can Maxim de Winter's shy new bride ever fill her place or escape her vital shadow?
Nina Garden. Roses on the curtains, though.
Is it B, Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe? The novel follows the life of eponymous heroine Moll Flanders.
Maud Flanders.
Moll Flanders.
Maud Flanders.
Through its many vicissitudes. What does that mean?
Ned Flanders.
Which include her early seduction, careers in crime and prostitution, conviction for theft and transportation to the plantations of Virginia. Don't know if you can tell, this was 18th century. Is it C, Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf? Society hostess Clarissa Dalloway is giving a party. Her thoughts and sensations on that one day and the interior monologues of others whose lives are interwoven with hers gradually reveal the characters of the central protagonists.
Yeah, it's not party. First one.
Rebecca.
Yeah, because the curtains.
No, this is in fact Moll Flanders.
Maud Flanders.
Yes, and I love that this is a book from like the 17-somethings.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows her,
Back.
Presumably is a time traveller. So you got 2 out of 5 in the Wordsworth book cover guessing game.
How many did you get?
Go on.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, not
That's
bad.
pretty good.
Well, maybe you should be on the next episode of the... There's not going to be a next episode. This is it now. Back to the rest of the video. So, how many points did you get? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed Bill's contribution to this video, and by pure coincidence you also enjoy retro video games, you should go and check out his YouTube channel, The Retro Sofa, on that very same topic, link down below. Wordsworth don't sell their classics for £1 anymore, and annoyingly, frustratingly, I haven't been able to find out when they stopped. Funnily enough, they don't put that on their company timeline. These days, they price their books at £3.99 on their website, which I should point out is still quite cheap. But there's something else you notice when browsing their online catalogue. Their covers look a lot more uniform. These new editions of the Bronte sisters novels clearly have bespoke covers designed specifically for those books and made to match. And whether they are to your taste or not, admittedly, they're not much to mine, there's no denying that they are higher quality than the old ones, even down to the gilding of the titles. These new covers, while a bit twee, are a far cry from the ugly trashiness of the old ones. If we return to the history section of the Wordsworth About page, this seems to be the result of a recent change in leadership. Wordsworth is a classic family company founded by Michael and Helen Traylor in the 80s, now run by daughter Nicola Traylor, who was appointed managing director in 2023. Nicola is on a mission to make the company her own by way of redesigning the entire range with a view of making the books more beautiful and sustainable. So there you have it. Next time you're in a charity shop and you see a Wordsworth classic with a truly ghastly cover, you know just why. And if you do, you should definitely snap it up and add to your own collection, since it seems like the glory days of cheap, horrible, ugly Wordsworth classics are sadly over. And if you enjoy looking at trashy book covers in general, as it happens, I've got a whole playlist of videos on just that topic in which I look at and rate vintage books in all their unique ugliness. You know where to find the link. Thank you for watching. Bye!